What's up, wrestling world? This is Andy Perez with 411mania.com, and you are watching Dissecting Dynamite. And ladies and gentlemen, we have a number one contender tournament on our hands. Woo! So good for us, I guess. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you like, make sure you subscribe, make sure you comment in the chat. Tell us what you thought about tonight's show. That's also my first question for our wonderful co-host tonight. You may know him as a longtime contributing writer for 411 Mania, over a decade, and as well as a bona fide and published storytelling extraordinaire, Mr. Tony Acero. Tony, how you doing today?
What's up? I like your shirt. It looks kind of familiar, you know?
Yeah, it looks like we're almost matching this week. He probably could have used more of our support last week. All he did tonight was cut a promo, but last week we let him down. We let him down as he experienced that time limit draw. But nonetheless, what'd you think about tonight's episode of Dynamite as a whole?
Solid. I mean, it gets kind of tiring and repetitive to say that AEW has a solid outing, but it's funny. I used to make fun of Larry because he would use the word solid in almost every review of every match of every show that he won. And then now that I've kind of, taken the helm of a lot of the things that he's doing, I find myself doing the same thing, like saying solid for a lot of them. But I mean, that's just the perfect word for tonight. It was great, up and down. There was no lull. It was solid.
Yeah, as solid as a super kick on the chin with the Young Bucks winning that main event. But let's not start at the end. Let's start at the beginning. The show opened up this week with Wardlow versus Jungle Boy, a classic David versus Goliath situation, and possibly with these two in a match, we're possibly looking at the future of the company here. What do you think of Wardlow versus Jungle Boy in the first round? In the first round match for this number one contender heavyweight title tournament?
You see a big guy like Wardlow, and you're kind of trained as a viewer of wrestling to assume that we're going to see a squash match. Mm-hmm. It's almost inevitable that there's a big guy and a little guy. The little guy's going to get his ass handed to him. And not to say that didn't happen. It did. But it was a match. It wasn't a squash. And I got to give major props to AEW for continuing to do stuff like that. A squash match to them matters, which we see later, and it has more weight to it than the expectations that we have as fans to see someone like Wardlow just destroy Jungle Boy. And Jungle Boy, I've had gripes with him in the past, not him, the person, but the wrestler. He's seemingly indestructible, and it gets a little tedious at times. But during this match, what I noticed was there was a lot of ring general attributes to Jungle Boy. He was really calling a majority of the match. He was guiding Wardlow into certain positions. And there were moments where it might have looked a little choreographed, but these are two young guys. And it's just crazy to see a 23-year-old take charge and know full well that tonight his job is to make sure Wardlow looks good. And it's just that kind of chemistry that is I don't know. It's nice to see on the screen.
And to me, I think looks good may even be an understatement. We have Wannabe Trout Fishers back in the chat this week saying that Wardlow is a beast. And I'd have to echo that sentiment because he looked amazing in this match. Some really, really cool spots. We had Wardlow flinging Jungle Boy into the turnbuckle post with a big power bomb. We had Wardlow catch Jungle Boy on the outside and fling him with an F10 back into the ring, and then we had a monster of an F10 in order to finish off the match and send Wardlow into the quarterfinals next week. What are your thoughts on the F10? I've seen online that it's a bit of that it's a bit controversial. People don't like him. I guess taking Brock Lesnar's move, but you can't necessarily say that. I mean, it's wrestling. The moves are interchangeable. It's all about storytelling. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, there's not a lot of people that I wouldn't say something to their face, but I would never say this to Brock Lesnar. But screw Brock Lesnar. I mean, I don't care. Like let Wardlow make that move his own. And I mean, we could talk for hours on how I feel Brock Lesnar has kind of altered the landscape of pro wrestling in a negative way. But with regards to Wardlow, like if if that's something that people are complaining about, they're looking for something to complain about.
Most
That's
definitely,
all.
most definitely, and I hope Brock Lesnar didn't hear that all the way up in Saskatchewan, Saskatoon, or else you may be taken to Suplex City tonight. I wouldn't want to see that on the night before your birthday, Tony. I really wouldn't want to see Brock Lesnar come and destroy you. So you may want to speak a bit quieter when speaking ill of Brock Lesnar next time around.
Yeah, and to be clear, Brock, if you're watching, it's not necessarily your fault. You're chasing the money, and I gotta respect that. There's a whole other issue there, but yeah, I definitely do not want to get hit with an F. I will be hit with a truck tonight, but it'll be metaphorically and with alcohol. So we will be facing Brock this evening.
And rather than the bubbly, I imagine it's going to be a half pint of Jack Daniels, but that's for you to decide. Jungle Boy looked a bit drunk after getting that triple spin F10 and taking that loss. But Wardlow moving on, and we're moving on to a look back at last week. We were shown the parts of Eddie Kingston's promo from last week that we didn't really get to see on the broadcast. And speaking for myself, Eddie Kingston, just one of the best performers with the stick in not only in AEW but in all of wrestling. He gives such an impassioned promo, and that led into the announcement of the Jon Moxley versus Eddie Kingston I Quit match for the heavyweight championship at Full Gear. What do you think about this development here in the Kingston Moxley storyline?
So Eddie is, well, he's amazing. I feel that everything he says, you as a viewer believe, and that is sometimes the hardest part as a heel, to get the people that are watching you to not only believe you, but believe that you believe what you're saying. He believes every word he's saying. He makes every single statement real, personal, and just vicious. I mean, you can look at the video where he cut a promo on a cookie. Like, he knows what he's doing very, very well. And Moxley, to his credit, also had a pretty strong promo tonight as well. One thing that I noticed, so we haven't spoken about this, but we will later because you do a little segment on the rankings. I don't pay much attention to the rankings. I know AEW kind of has that as a basis of how their matches are made and everything. Mm-hmm. And I feel that sometimes that could book them into a corner. But what we saw was their ability to get out of that corner. Because when AEW tonight, when Dynamite started, I can see some people in my comment section, talking about the ratings, how Kingston isn't even a part of that, and blah, blah, blah. Commentary mentioned Moxley has beaten the top 5. Commentary mentioned that Moxley demanded this match. Commentary said that this is personal. All of those, and watching those two promos makes you as if you're like, oh shit, okay, yeah, F the ratings, the rankings, let's see this. So yeah, I think that they handled it well. I Quit match is dangerous, but I think Eddie can talk himself out of any loss, so I'm excited for it.
Most definitely. We already saw him skid back on his loss a couple weeks ago, saying he didn't tap out, he didn't quit, and Jon Moxley, as you said, he echoed that in his promo. And the story here is set. Eddie Kingston, he thinks he deserves more. Eddie Kingston thinks that Moxley abandoned him, and that's what's held him back from achieving more. Moxley thinks otherwise, and he's not going to apologize for getting to the top, because why do people join that industry? To get to the top, and Moxley is there, and I don't see him dropping the strap to Eddie Kingston. I know we may be getting ahead of ourselves, but you as a storyteller, how do you see this whole situation playing out?
Yeah, Eddie's not going to get the title. The story is in the chase for this one. Eddie winning the belt won't really do much, I don't believe, for his character. Once you achieve that sole goal that you're after, then what? I think there's a lot more story to be told than Eddie's chase and or disdain for other people and or taking care of his family and making sure that they're whole and that they get what they want. He's a great mouthpiece. He's an amazing promo. And I think in a rare occasion, a title might hinder a character's performance as opposed to make it stronger.
Most definitely, most definitely. And just taking a peek at the chat here, first of all, we have a few people agreeing with you, saying screw Brock Lesnar. So it looks like you're not the only one going to Suplex City. But in addition to
We'll
that,
take them all on.
exactly. In addition to that, Kenneth is saying that the best Moxley promos are the ones where he blends fiction and reality, just because he does it so damn well. And I really feel like this whole storyline is headed that direction. The way that they've blended fiction and reality here is something that makes me proud to be a wrestling fan. I would love to prop up this story and show it to any casual fan. And with the enthusiasm behind both of these promos, I'm sure that they would be engrossed just as much as I am. And also on top of that, Blake is popping in saying that he doesn't know if he loves you more or if he loves John Silver more, and he loves John Silver a lot. So so you must have something going for you. But
Well, we both like Mountain Dew, apparently. So
yeah, kindred spirits coming together for the love of Mountain Dew and wrestling, of course. Okay, so between Eddie Kingston's promo and John Moxley's promo, they had a commercial break in between them, but other than that, they were back-to-back promos. Whose story are you latching on to more? As a fan, whose side are you gravitating towards? Where do you stand on as we go into this heavyweight title bout at Full Gear?
I'm glad you brought this up, because there's something that I noticed about the promos, both singularly and together, and it's the idea and the reality that from a writer's standpoint, a lot of times, oftentimes, promos on WWE, they don't speak to one another.
Mm-hmm.
The wrestler A says something and goes on a long diatribe and says what he's got to say. Wrestler B says something and goes on a long diatribe and says what they want to say, but they can work without one another.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning you can have one and that's fine, or the other, but they don't talk to one another. These scripted pieces don't work with one another. When you look at Moxley and Kingston tonight, they would not be able to exist without one another. Moxley starting first and saying what he said, and then Kingston firing back, literally laughing at him like, you don't get it. You don't understand why I'm pissed and why I had to do what I did. Whereas Moxley's like saying the exact same thing. You don't get it. You don't understand why I did what I did. I thought it was clear. Like, I'm trying to be successful. These two pieces are correct. Both of them are right, and that's why as long as your character feels justified in what they're doing, the viewer can latch onto them and feel emotionally invested in either one or both. If I were to pick one, I'm like a fan of Breaking Bad, Walter White being a total jerk and falling into darkness, so I gotta go Eddie. Just the promo that he got. I will give Moxley some credit for saying, like, oh, yeah, you didn't tap out because you were too busy blowing snot bubbles and passing out in my arms. But at the end of the day, Eddie's promo just really just hammered it home. And he can have a gripe. And he has a comparison, too. He says, you left your family, you left me, your friend, back in the dust. I won't do that. In fact, I'm going to talk about my family first, and then I'll get to you. Man, they're doing great.
Most definitely, and I said it last week. I think Miro is a diehard villain. I think Eddie Kingston would be a great Breaking Bad villain, just maybe holding a gun to Walter White's head. But that's for a different dimension to work out. Moving on, we have DWID920 in the chat saying, I see Omega being the one that ends up defeating Moxley. That's a perfect segue into the next bout of the night. We had Sonny Kiss subbing in for Joey Janela, who is out due to complications with COVID, versus Kenny Omega. And we have seen quite the transformation for Kenny Omega here in the past month or so. And this just tops it off. Kenny coming in with an entrance that shows exactly where his head is as a star, that shows exactly where his perspective is. He knows that he knows what he's capable of as a single star, and he's not going to be humble about it. What an entrance! What an introduction! Before we get to the match, what did you think of Kenny Omega's whole get-up and his whole entrance leading into it?
Oh, I was smirking. I was very, okay, all right, this is what we're doing. I mean, prior to AEW, I only knew Kenny Omega off of his matches. I didn't really know much about character work or, where he came from other than, the the more famous stuff, New Japan and his matches with Jericho. So I didn't get a full feel for the cleaner or who that person was or who heel Kenny Omega was. Tonight I got a taste of it, and I got to say it's pretty funny. I mean, it wasn't like groundbreaking, but two chicks with brooms. Is he calling for a clean sweep? Is he saying he's a cleaner? I don't know, but either way, that's a douche move, and I love it. And then the win. I am prone to dislike squash matches, as I said earlier, but with the entrance that he made and the character work that he was doing, it kind of made sense. And Sonny Kiss, she's fine, he's fine to take a loss. It doesn't really, it's not going to hurt him. The aftermath, though, the small moment where you think he's going to attack Sonny and realize, no, he's going to do something even worse. He's going to be like, you really tried, good job for you, man. You're good. You're good.
Just so freaking smug. It was amazing to watch. But yeah, as you said, squash match, only 2 moves from what I remember, V-trigger right into the one-winged angel. And JR on commentary even came out and said it outright. Kenny is the odds-on favorite in this tournament. And from what the chat's saying, people want that to happen. People want to see Kenny Omega versus Jon Moxley. They want to see that story come full circle. And we have Wannabe Trout Fishers back in the chat saying old school Kenny Omega just dominating. He is a 5-star bout machine. He is but this match was far and away from 5 stars. Like you said, it was a major squash, but it was one that really, really propelled the story forward, and just great character work from Kenny Omega here. But that transitions us into a couple more promos that aren't necessarily speaking to each other in the same manner that Kingston and Moxley did, but still interesting nonetheless. We had an interview with OC Cassidy, with Orange Cassidy. Just being his normal self, showing that maybe he has a bit more serious demeanor, but he's still shrugging off that match. He's still shrugging off his loss from last week, but his time limit draw from last week, and is ready to move on into next week. And then we have Cody's arrival into the arena, saying that he's all swoked up, or Arn Anderson rather saying that he's all swoked up, and Cody describing himself as a self-described giant killer. These two characters. They're not ones that I would assume would butt heads, but it's a very interesting dynamic between the two of them. What are your thoughts on this whole situation? What were your thoughts on the promos that we saw?
So Orange Cassidy cut a promo that belongs on the list, the same list that Hard Times by Dusty Rhodes cuts. This was the best promo in all of wrestling. No,
I couldn't keep a straight face. I'm sorry, I just couldn't keep a straight face.
Anyone who's read anything I've written with regards to Orange Cassidy knows that I rate his matches like 11 stars, and everything he does is golden. There is a reason. I met him once at an indie show when he just started pulling this character out, and I remember going up to him and saying, "I really love what you're doing. I think it's amazing." And he didn't even look at me. And he said, "Yeah, thanks, guy." And I'm like, oh my god, this is so awesome. and then I remember, I mean, I don't know if he just for sure he was in character, but before I walked away, I was impressed. I loved it. He goes, "Hey," and I'm like, "Yeah," and he did this. And I'm like, that he won me over before anything. And then just the way he's been able to have this character grow into something is awesome. So his promo, getting the city wrong and not caring, it's just, that's the Orange Cassidy that I've grown to know and love. Cody's been weird. Before he got injured, if you recall, Arn Anderson was constantly berating him in the ring because he kept doing like heelish tactics, like stop gloating, stop doing your push-up thing, like stop doing that. And then he had his return with black hair, so he was like a face for a week. And then I think they're going back towards that, cocky, arrogant, generational superstar who has a little bit of a chip on his shoulder. Cody's an interesting character for me because I feel a lot of people give him a lot of slack because of his position in the company. There's times where I watch matches and I think he's really trying to prove to us fans online that he's worthy of the positioning that he's putting himself in. And I feel kind of bad for him because I've never thought that he didn't deserve it. He's a solid hand. He has his moments where it's like whatever, but I mean, a lot of wrestlers do. I don't think he puts himself over someone to the detriment of them. Some could point Brody Lee out as an example, but Brody came in hot.
Oh yeah,
and I mean he got more than he's ever gotten. And the good thing about AEW is these people don't just disappear. You don't get squandered into Jobberville in AEW because there's plenty of time left and there's plenty of room left, and even matches that seemingly don't matter get time. Which I mean, Britt Baker had one of those too tonight, where their opponent or her opponent was essentially a jobber, if you will, but still had time to do some work. I was really impressed. So I think Cody gets a lot of unfair slack, and that's rare for me to say because I give everyone shit, like everyone. But he's done really, really well. So when these two, go at it again, I'm excited. I'm hyped for any time Orange Cassidy is in the ring. And as far as the lumberjack match goes, I hate those, but I hate them only because WWE does them so horribly. The one lumberjack match that I saw in AEW made so much sense. Everyone that didn't like who was in the ring didn't like them. They weren't working with one another. They didn't like who they were standing next. The heel and face dynamic didn't just disappear because it was a lumberjack match. So I trust them. I'm gonna wait and see on this one.
See, I'm generally disposed to dislike lumberjack matches as well. And it makes it even more confusing for me because the face heel dynamic between Orange Cassidy and Cody isn't exactly clear in my mind just yet. So to extend that to a whole other group of people standing outside of the ring, I'm not sure how I'm going to feel about it next week. You'll have to watch next week's episode of Dissecting Dynamite to find out. Little plug there. But nonetheless, I'm a fan of Orange Cassidy. I really like the work that Cody's doing right now. Like we said, he's a bit of a tweener going back and forth, and where that may incite some negative feelings in the internet wrestling community, I'm really digging the work that he's putting in. But nonetheless, moving on to the next match of the night, potentially the match of the night, we had Penta versus Rey Fenix in a brother versus brother first round match for this world title #1 contender tournament with Eddie Kingston on commentary. There were parts of this match that were scary. There were parts of this match that were thrilling. There were parts of this match that made my eyes roll back in my head because I was so wowed by the athleticism that I saw. What did you think about this match?
Holy shit was what I thought. And also, Eddie Kingston has never seen anything before in his life multiple times. I think he said that about 8 times, and it was believable, even though he's been friends with these guys for years. This match was great. It wasn't over the top either, which AEW sometimes has a tendency to do, especially when the Young Bucks are involved. It gave them a platform to kind of grow, but also enhance the relationship that they share with one another. Being brothers, like, that was obviously there, but it wasn't pounded over your head. You just kind of knew it, you figured it out, and you saw it happen in the ring. They were beating each other's asses. And then you got that small moment where Penta, of all people, because all I've seen from Penta since AEW's begun is that he's kind of a a-hole. He's not the nicest person.
A psychotic a-hole, not just an a-hole. Psychotic.
Yeah, he's nuts. So to see him pause for just a second, even a little bit, to be like, oh, crap, are you good? It's like when you wrestle with your younger brothers. I'm the oldest of 6, and you go a little too far, and you're like, oh crap, I better offer him like a soda or something.
Oh my gosh.
Like, are you good? And then that was his downfall. That's what caused the loss. And I think that my only critique I had on this match, aside from Rey Fenix, kind of messing up a little bit, that's going to happen in a match like this. So you got to kind of let them be. A destroyer ending the match kind of threw me off, only because it's been such a transitional move over the past couple of years. But again, I have to blame another company for that. Um, their overusage of the Destroyer as a move that doesn't end the match, but simply looks cool and gets a 2 count. So it kind of threw me off a little bit. But that's the only thing I had to say about that match that could even be remotely close to bad.
Right, most definitely, and I think the ending is excusable because it was such a surprise for Penta within the story of the match that his brother is not concussed, that his brother is not still reeling, just hits him with a surprise destroyer, and if somebody surprised me with a destroyer right now, God knows I'm not coming up for that 3 count. We have Broken Mug 64 in the chat right now saying that they rate the match, that they rate Penta versus Fenix 5 stars. I don't know if I would go that far. For one, I'm not Dave Meltzer, so I don't have that authority, I believe. But nonetheless, I'd say it was a banger of a match. And Blake Lavelle, he said on Twitter that the storytelling in this match was just incredible, was just off the charts, and I would have to agree with that because the brother versus brother story here was done about as well as I've ever seen something of that nature done. And surprise for me at least, we had Ray Phoenix moving forward rather than Penta. I was looking forward to a potential Penta versus Kenny Omega match next week, but heck, I'll take Kenny Omega versus Ray Phoenix. That is going to be a hell of a match. How do you see Ray Phoenix's fate going forward in the remainder of this tournament?
I mean, I hope they don't squash him. So I think that he's gonna. I think and I hope that they're gonna give him and Omega some time, and it'll be a good match, and it'll be one that's worthy of the tournament. But ultimately, Kenny's gonna move forward. This is all a tournament for Kenny and Adam Page, and that's great. When you look back on when they broke up and the conversations that were had on commentary from both of them, and they lead to this inevitable clash, where both of them are going head to head. It's just good storytelling. It's not even hard to do. It's just they took their time with it. This is not a rushed thing, and it's awesome. We're along for the ride, and I love that.
Most definitely, and we saw maybe some issues between the two brothers after the match, with Penta pushing Ray away as Ray's trying to I guess console him for his loss, check on him, making sure that he's A-okay, and we have Kenneth Hill in the chat saying that Eddie Kingston added that extra personal layer, acting as the medium between the brothers and being just as excited as any of us were for the match. And I don't think it can be said enough. The flair that Eddie Kingston on commentary did add to this match. And Wannabe Trout Fishers is saying, I'm assuming in regards to next week's Kenny versus Ray Phoenix match, that he wants to see it one and done, a squash match again. I can't echo that sentiment. I want to see an all out. You know what? Even though these two men are wonderful with storytelling, I want to see an all out spot fest next week. I just want Ray Phoenix and Kenny Omega to go insane. And I'm ready for it. But that leads us into a bit of an awkward promo for me. Just maybe a little 20-second spot outlining the best friends and Miro and Kip Sabian storyline with what happened last week with the poor, what is he calling it, Alan, with the poor arcade game.
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah, with the poor arcade game being smashed. This is something that I enjoy from AEW, even if these guys aren't on the card tonight. We still get an update on this storyline that's moving forward, making sure that we don't forget about any of the story threads that are moving throughout the show. How do you see the Miro and Kip Sabian versus the Best Friends little mini feud that we have going on? Where do you see that heading, and what did you think of this little 20-second promo?
Miro's been a little bit hit or miss with me since his debut, especially the match itself that he debuted in.
Right.
I didn't need a squash match from him, but this was a really run of the mill match that didn't really speak any type of volume other than a lot of mess ups, mostly on Joey Janela's part. But Miro didn't really stand out. And then the following week, I like the idea of them having their own language that speaks to video gamers, because I hope that that has a crossing from, from the fan standpoint. I know that I understood all of their, mentions, so that's cool. I think that this will inevitably lead to Miro versus Kip, which will give Miro a little bit more of a spotlight. But I can't be upset with them for not pushing him to the moon either. So it's this weird like crossroads for myself to demand that I take some time with this character to let him grow and let him learn AEW's way. As a wrestler, I don't know where Miro has been since WWE's departure.
Mm-hmm.
But in WWE, you have rest holds galore. You have pause. You have a time, and you have a producer that is spelling out a majority of your match. In AEW, I don't know the inner workings, but judging by watching the wrestlers, a majority of the matches are called there beforehand and on the spot. It's more akin to an indie show, and having been at many of them, you get to see how it's done. You really do. Wrestlers are talking outside, literally like, okay, I'll do this, and then you're going to do that, and then it's a joy to see. And I think AEW has a lot more of that involved. So Miro's going to need time to kind of get used to it and focus on little things that allow him to be more wrestler, less entertainer. So I want to give him the time. If this is what is necessary for him to get that time, then I'm all for it. It's non-intrusive in the show. It doesn't, take away from the quality of everything else. It's not something that I'm clamoring for, but AEW has given me like weeks worth of amazing material. They can have one segment that doesn't entertain me, and that's fine.
Right. Exactly. And that's moving us on to Colt Cabana versus Hangman Page, and we have Kenneth Hill doing some more fantasy booking in the chat, talking about Hangman Page. He says that he thinks Omega is going to come into the finals overconfident, whereas Hangman comes in hesitant, reaffirmed as a single star, especially after Hangman's initial run. And we saw Hangman on display here versus Colt Cabana. Hangman coming out with was this new gear? I don't know if I've seen him in the full blown tights yet, but maybe a bit of a reinvention for himself as well. What did you think of Colt Cabana versus Hangman Page in the number one contenders tournament here?
It was slow to start, but I think that had a lot to do with the picture-in-picture segment.
Mm-hmm.
I noticed that a lot of action that happens during that isn't something that you like can't miss. So they kind of let some lulls into that small portion of the show. Whether people believe it or not, it almost always detracts. You're not, the only reason why I'm watching picture-in-picture and not using that time to make a sandwich or urinate is because I have to do the report, and that means I can't get up at all. So, but because of that, you notice that there's not a lot of big things that happen other than Sammy attacking Matt Hardy. So the match was a little slow, but once it got into that second gear, it was pretty impactful, especially Page showing his strength. Colt Cabana is not a small boy. He is a heavyweight. He is hefty, and Page is just lifting him up out of the corner. He did that weird, like it was kind of a pump handle lift type thing that he just picked him up like he was a sack of potatoes. Like the guy's got strength like crazy.
Oh my gosh.
I did like I liked Colt's. I liked them showing that Colt was a veteran and that he knew some of the tricks. He knew the V-trigger was coming. He tried to dodge it again. He just couldn't do it that third time because Page faked him out. That doesn't hurt Colt in the least. And then you still get that last little sprinkle of story with the Dark Order coming to take him back. You don't know what that means. I don't know if that means anything, but it adds something to the Colt Cabana character and the Dark Order character, especially considering earlier in the show you saw Silver, taking lines between breaks between cocaine lines and saying, I'm not a friend of yours. Don't call us friends. We don't even like you, but you're going to win the title. So I don't know. It's something that can add to something later.
Oh my gosh. Blake is going to kill us for hopping over that John Silver Colt Cabana promo that happened right before this match. But what that match outlined and then possibly what that promo outlined and then possibly the aftermath of this match, we've seen that Colt is the I guess the black sheep of the Dark Order right now. We've seen Mr. Brody Lee screaming at Colt Cabana. We've seen Colt Cabana be dismayed by the Dark Order. And where do you see his character progressing from here? Because he's in a bit of a, for me at least, a bit of a character purgatory. I'm not sure if his style meshes well with the Dark Order. I'm not sure if his character meshes with the Dark Order. Just speaking from my perspective as a fan, um, where do you see Colt Cabana going from here?
Well, there would have to be, no, I wouldn't say a drastic alteration of character, but something that just made him snap.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you remember when he first joined, or you can't even say joined the Dark Order, he was just kind of there with them. I remember Brody Lee shielding him from any, heel tactics that they did. When they like jumped somebody, he would corner Cabana and like kind of huddle him in and talk to him so he wouldn't see the evil that, he possessed. And I really enjoyed that fold, even though Cabana could watch the show at any given time and see it. So I think that they would need more of that, and then his gradual decline into whatever Brody Lee is, whether he's serving them Kool-Aid in the back or he has scripture that is making them evil, whatever story you want to develop into a full-fledged turn, but there has to be a break. There has to be a snap. And I mean, losing in a tournament might be that. I don't know. I do know they haven't given a lot of love in terms of writing for the Dark Order, but I'm willing to give them time for that because they're not in the main event picture, they're not in the lower card picture, so it's okay to not necessarily know quite yet. And you only got a 2-hour show.
Most definitely, most definitely. And we have a bit of a back and forth going on in the chat right now between Kenneth Hill and Jonas, talking about where the Young Bucks stand in terms of storytelling. Are they a heel? Are they a face? Guys, make sure you hold on to that as we move into the main event later on in Dissecting Dynamite. But before that, we have a bit of a creepy promo by Sammy Guevara here. Has a bit of a shrine put up for Matt Hardy, talking about how it was always him, how it was him that took him out before. It's him that's going to take out Matt Hardy again. And I voiced my concern for this storyline last week. There was some definite contention online talking about Matt Hardy versus Sammy Guevara here, and it still doesn't have me completely hooked just yet, but the effort that they're putting in to build this story week after week, it's still pretty commendable. What are your thoughts on Sammy Guevara and Matt Hardy and the way that this story is building?
Well, Sammy doing his best "it was me all along" impression was kind of funny, but I don't think they needed to go that far. I remember last week, one of the viewers, I think is Trout in his name, he got really upset about you kind of not liking or enjoying Matt Hardy.
Wannabe Trout Fisher is not a fan of Andy Perez. That's just how it is. He doesn't like the words that I'm saying about Matt Hardy. But you know what? God forbid one person speaks ill about the Hardy brothers. They have been famous and working for 25 years now. One detractor is okay. Just let me have my opinion, for gosh sakes.
Well, he's about to be pissed off at me too. No, I'm kidding. Matt, look, I cannot deny a wrestler his spotlight after deserving it, and I could. Here's the way I look at it. The world today is different than it was 20 years ago. If Matt fell off of a scaffolding and fell on his head and went through, if that match that we saw happened 20 years ago, we would all be praising Matt for being a badass and for saying how crazy he is, and he's just one of them Hardy boys. And these guys have dove through tables, fallen off ladders, been speared midair. Matt has done some crazy things. I mean, he lost weight to win a cruiserweight title. He's done some things. So I can't disdain him for trying to continue his legacy and trying to give someone a push, because this is ultimately what it is. He's trying to give Sammy some legitimacy. So I can't be the one. I'm not going to be the one. I refuse to be the one to tell Matt, whether it be directly or through a live stream, YouTube, that he shouldn't be doing this or he shouldn't be doing that, because that's on you, man. I mean, I'm pretty sure your wife is giving you a hell of a lot more hell than any one of us fans can give you.
Right.
By all means, we will watch with bated breath and kind of be worried about him. But I'm hoping that this is more of a redemption story than an "I told you so" story. So I'm all for it. I'm cool with it.
Okay. I can respect that. I can respect that. And we have a bit of a back and forth going on in the chat right now. We have Wannabe Trout Fishers coming back in trying to delete me. And then we have and then we have Kenneth Hill and Jonas coming in saying that they want to see a Sammy versus Hardy match at the Hardy compound, and it looks like that's the direction that we might be heading. We had a match card displayed over the court some point in tonight saying Matt Hardy versus Sammy Guevara in an Elite Delete match. And it's going to be interesting to see if they do go to the Hardy compound, what that character dynamic will look like, because Matt Hardy is not currently woken. He is not currently broken. He's just hell bent Matt Hardy, ready to get some revenge over his cracked skull. So how do you see that situation possibly playing out at the Hardy compound with Matt Hardy's current character?
I mean, it's kind of hard to say. If they go to the compound, then I think they're reinventing the wheel. We've seen it before. We've seen it in multiple companies. And although I trust AEW to have some high quality interaction outside of the ring, as we saw with MJF and Jericho, I do feel that a retreat of any type of Hardy compound might just be a little bit unnecessary. It would be interesting to see them take it elsewhere. Maybe I don't know. I really don't. There's like this idea of Matt Hardy showing up 5 times as 5 different Matt Hardys and Sammy beating all of them. That's in my head. That's not going to make for good TV, but that just sounds great. Like,
I'm all for that. I'm all for Matt Hardy pulling the Mick Foley at the Royal Rumble trick and coming out as Dude Love and Mankind and Cactus Jack. Matt Hardy even has a larger Rolodex of characters at this point. I'd say Matt Hardy is maybe even rivaling Chris Jericho when it comes to how many times he's reinvented himself at this point. So wherever they go, it's sure to be interesting. Whether or not it's entertaining, that remains to be seen. And that moves us into a promo by Taz here, coming out very enthused about his clients, Brian Cage and Ricky Starks. And with this promo alone, I mean, you know it. I believe you have one of his shirts somewhere over there in the closet. Ricky Starks is a star.
Yeah, I gotta go back to a personal story again. I saw Ricky Starks for the first time in a small fed in Arizona. They were around for like 2 months. They weren't around long. Greg DeMarco, who used to write for 411, he puts his hands in everything. And one of the things that he tried to do was throw a wrestling show. And although it lasted all of 2 months, it was amazing. Production value, card, wrestling. I believe Ricky Starks faced Hammerstone that night. I'm not 100% sure. But when he came out, he just looked like a star.
Oh, yeah.
Then he cut himself a little mini promo, and I'm like, oh, who is this guy? He's going to go places. So when I saw him show up on AEW, I was hyped. I was so excited for him. And so far, he's been killing it. I love the promo. I especially love how he's like, bring the camera close. And although you can't see the cameraman's face, you can kind of feel the annoyance. Like, I mean, I guess I'll zoom in on you, like, right? And it's just great because Ricky Starks is, according to the show, he's just like whatever. He's just one of Taz's people. But to Ricky Starks, he's the star. He's the show. So zoom in. Bring yourself closer. That was great. You expect like, okay, boom, right? But you just get this hesitation from the camera, like, I mean, okay. Awesome.
Most definitely, and that sentiment is being reflected in the chat right now. BDC Drummer saying that Ricky Starks is money, and to me it speaks volumes when you have Ricky Starks standing up there next to a 280-pound behemoth like Brian Cage, and Ricky Starks is the one that looks like a giant. He doesn't look like a giant maybe physically next to him, but the way he's carrying himself, the way he's presenting himself, and the way that he presented that promo, it sold him on me, and I'm sure it sold him for many people watching at home as well. But that piece of entertainment from Ricky Starks leads into I'm not going to spoil if it's my Dynamite Diamond of the night until we get to that segment. But this Le Dîner Debonair between MJF and Chris Jericho was unlike anything I have ever seen on a professional wrestling show. Speaking from somebody that comes from a theater background, that comes from a musical theater background, quite the performance from MJF and Chris Jericho. What did you think of this segment here?
When you found out it was going to happen, you ask yourself as a fan, like, what are they going to do?
Right,
Like,
right.
what you know it's going to be good. They're going to joke around a bit. They're going to one up one another. But what are they going to do? And then it starts, and you get a joke about steaks, and it's okay. Like, it doesn't. They probably could have cooked the joke a little more. That was definitely not a porterhouse, by the way. But they, yeah, the medium rare into the blue cut, and it was all right. But then you can make a list of what you think they're going to do, and I can almost guarantee musical number would not be on your list. It was awesome. I know there's going to be some people that don't like it. I'm sure Jim Cornette is going to hate it, but like it just fits their character. It makes no sense, and it makes perfect sense. It was greatly done. The lyrics were hilarious. Their little dancing number. The only thing I was really, really concerned about was the color of Jericho's face. Other than that, I thought that this was gold. Like, man, I enjoyed it. I loved it. And it's one of those things they're going to, I mean, when you look at it from a reality standpoint, in what world does that make sense? Like, how can you pull back from reality and watch these two dudes sing? But when you think about their egos, it's like, well, it's like Family Guy breaking into a random musical number. You didn't ask for it, but you're like, this is kind of funny.
Exactly. And like you said, poor Jericho, the complexion of a plum there at the end. And I said it to you before we hopped on the air. If that's what Jericho looks like when he's lip syncing, I want to see what he looks like during an actual Fozzy performance. I hate to bring Brock Lesnar back up again, but he may have that Brock Lesnar purple complexion if by the end of a full Fozzy song. But it seems the chat is reflecting our joyous reception of this segment, because Wannabe Trout Fishers finally agreeing with me for once, says that it was an instant classic, and BDC Drummer is asking, can we confirm that was MJF's actual singing voice? I actually did a bit of research right after that segment. And it looked like MJF was like a state choir champion in addition to a football star at his alma mater. So that very well may be his real voice. And I also found a video of a young MJF, a little 5-year-old MJF, on the Rosie O'Donnell show, of all places, singing "You Are My Sunshine, My Only Sunshine," a big departure from the MJF that we see today. But once you're done watching this episode of Dissecting Dynamite, go search on YouTube MJF the Rosie O'Donnell show and find the answer yourself of if that was his real singing voice. It was very, very impressive over here, and the way that they put the whole segment together. Like you said, it's as if we had an acid trip in the middle of a wrestling show, and I loved it. And that leads us into the next match of the night. We had Dr. Britt Baker popping in versus I believe Killian King. Is that how you pronounce her name? I'm not.
Killian, I think.
Yeah, versus Killian King. And I was actually
Miss King.
Exactly. Okay, let's call her Miss King. I'm on board with that. I was actually a big fan of this match, and I thought Britt's offense in this match was just brutal. We had curb stomps, we had flatliners into the turnbuckle, we had big strikes, big kicks, and I love her version of the mandible claw, the lockjaw as well as a finisher. What did you think about Britt Baker versus Miss King?
Yeah. Well, I alluded to it earlier, where a match where it's essentially a squash match. It's rare to see the opponent, the one who didn't get an entrance, get any type of offense in. And yet tonight we saw Miss King put in some work. She was outmatched, of course, but the girl put in some work. She was very crisp, very good, and you have to assume that she knew this was going to be a spotlight on her. Let's put in some work, you know? And that's a level of respect that wrestlers tend to carry with them on the indies, where like, this is my time to shine. My goal is to make Britt Baker look good, but I'm for sure going to let them know that I'm not bad. And that's what I saw tonight. She did her job, and Britt did her job as well. Way better mandible claw than the Fiend. How did he put that on T-Bar, by the way? I mean, wasn't the mask in the way? I don't. So anyway,
it's not a question worth asking, at least on this show. We can leave that for Monday night.
Yeah, Britt did really well. I guess the only issue I have with this match is the glaring reality that, yes, positively they're building Britt Baker up to be a formidable opponent, but no, they're not really building anybody else up, and it's kind of a misfortune in the women's division, which a lot of people say is lacking. I won't fully sign on to that, but I will say that while the men have any number of characters growing into their own, the women kind of don't really have full-fledged, fully rounded out characters quite. Some of them quite yet. The matches have been cool. I mean, Big Swole, I'm not going to knock her. She tried, but the match that she had, I think last week, just didn't quite get it done. Nor did the match with Britt Baker. That wasn't to my liking. I'll say that. Other people liked it. Other people really liked it. So that kind of didn't work out. And then you look at Thunder Rosa, who was great. Ivelisse, who was awesome. Serena Deeb has been doing God's work for these women. Every match this girl's in is a joy to watch. But when you look at these characters, you have to ask yourself, who are they?
Right.
You don't really know. You know, and so like even if they put on a great match, and they do, they're gonna impress people like me and you. But you know, any type of casual fan wants to latch on to somebody, and even Sheeta doesn't get a lot of love because we don't really know who she is. I mean, you and I might know who she is, but the large majority of viewers, they just know she's the champion. Like, what else is there? So while I want to give major praise to Britt Baker tonight for basically being as brutal as possible, and Miss King for taking the work and doing well, it does show a little bit of a reality that the women's division just needs a little bit more tweaking.
I completely agree, and we have Wannabe Trout Fishers back in the chat again, agreeing with you, saying that there was an 180 degree change between the quality of last week's women's match to this week's women's match, and I would have to agree with that. And my big bone to pick when it comes to the women's division in AEW has nothing to do with the performers themselves. It's just a lack of exposure, not being able to let their characters breathe, as you're saying. And as we've seen with Britt Baker, when they are given time to let the characters breathe, great things happen. We've had some great segments over the course of the past few months, all of the pandemic era, really, of Britt Baker building her character into being this formidable threat, like you said. Whether or not other women are given that same opportunity remains to be seen. But we have a few predictions in the chat as well. Who was saying? Yeah, Kenneth Hill saying that he thinks Britt needs to get a definitive win over Big Swole before moving on to Sheeta, and I agree with that. I think Big Swole and Britt Baker have. I think they deserve a chance to go out there again and show exactly what they can do outside of the limits of this, I guess, kind of goofy gimmick match. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we can leave the dental office now and put it in the ring. Swole got a lot of heat for the last week, and I think a week or two before that. And I just think sometimes when you don't match up against someone all that well, we've seen it numerous times. I'll never forget. It was apparently I will forget because I don't remember who was in it. I think it was Mickie James and Gail Kim. They had like a clunker of a match. It was bad. It was super bad. And then the very next day was Access of SummerSlam, which I went to. And I had asked them, I'm like, I really don't want to be a dick, but like, what happened? Are you guys okay? And then because they were together. And Mickie James said, sometimes we just don't click.
Right.
And I was like, damn, she was honest, because some people were like, shut up, you stupid fan. But I probably would have. But yeah, so I keep that in mind a lot when I see a match that doesn't typically go well. any performance art. You said you were, in drama. Like you could crack. You could
Most definitely.
collapse under the weight of pressure. You are under a lot of scrutiny. You're being watched. You're being talked about by two nerds on a podcast. Like you're being viewed a lot. So they deserve a little bit of a break. But yeah, we would definitely appreciate a little bit more love on the female aspect of AEW.
Right, and we have Jonas in the chat saying saying in order to do that character building, there needs to be more than one women's match per Dynamite, and I'd be all for that if it brings more. If it brings more cohesion to the women's division, allows these characters to breathe more, I would love to see them gain some more exposure on the programming. And that leads us to what I thought was just a very odd promo. I guess it stays within the veins of what Darby Allin has been in his tenure here at AEW so far. But we had Steve-O with Darby Allin, and we had a body bag roll, and we had black and white, and I don't even know where to go with this promo. It just didn't strike the right chord for me, at least.
Yeah, there's a very, I can't recall the last time I said I didn't like not even a little bit any segment on AEW, and this was definitely one of them. First of all, Steve-O is way past his prime in terms of wrestling lore.
Right.
And the last time we saw him on a show, he was laughing after getting his ass beat by Umaga, which is kind of disrespectful, so I got a little bit of a
bit of love
but
lost
in terms of Darby. In terms of Darby, when we see this guy being like thrown into a body bag of thumbtacks and slammed onto the floor, when we see him rolling on a skateboard and practically killing himself, a body roll off of a skateboard ramp means nothing to us. And it definitely doesn't mean you're going to win the title, which is what he said when he escaped the bag. Like, I'm not saying I would actively do that. Like, I wouldn't roll down a skateboard ramp. But I think in my 20s I would. I mean, maybe after a fifth of Jack, like, all right, F it, I'll do it. I'm sure. And Darby, you've done way worse. You've done way worse for way little, like for way less. Okay? So this segment it kind of fell flat for me big time. It didn't do anything for me, and it certainly didn't make me think you were more prone to win the title because you rolled down a skateboard ramp.
Right.
We get it. You're crazy.
It at the end of the day, for me, it just did nothing in terms of character development for Darby. It didn't show us anything new. The only thing that it showed us is that AEW has access to Steve-O's agent, and that's all it said for me. And we have similar thoughts in the chat. Kenneth Hill saying that Steve-O is not only irrelevant in the wrestling world, but he's lost his relevancy, period. We have Wannabe Trout Fisher saying, what was that about? We have Jonas coming in saying that there was no upside to the segment. And then we have D-Wid 920 coming in saying Pontius and Steve-O did a video about talking about Umaga beating the crap out of both of them. So once again, add that to the list of things to look up after Dissecting Dynamite. Look up MJF on the Rosie O'Donnell show, and look up Steve-O and Chris Pontius talking about getting the shit beat out of them by Umaga. But that leads us into the main event. And going into this match, I felt sorry for you because you are the one that has to record move by move in written word what is going on AEW every week. And when we have a match with the Young Bucks and with Private Party and with Butcher and the Blade and the Dark Order, and we have all of these hands that have such a variety of styles, such interesting movesets, and working at a breakneck pace. Are you suffering from carpal tunnel syndrome now? Are your fingers down to their bone? How did you cover this match? Because this one was crazy.
I'm not even sure there's people that read the entire move for move report. I remember, so a little history lesson. I started at 411 in the movie section reviewing movies with Steve Gustafson in his column, and I did it for the sole purpose of eventually getting into the wrestling section. They gave me NXT. And I'm not talking about the NXT that's on Wednesday nights that puts out bangers every week. No, I'm talking about game show bullshit NXT, okay? Where They had keg races and votes and Matt Striker. It was the worst. That was me paying my dues, okay? And I recall doing the reports and typing out the matches, and I was told you don't necessarily have to do all that, but I couldn't do anything else for whatever reason. That's just kind of how my style is, and I didn't know I had a style until I started doing this. So we fast forward to now, where Raw, we had a little conversation about this. I could kind of telegraph moves. I kind of know what's coming, and I can base that off of the wrestler in the ring, what kind of match they're having, where it's at on the card, if a commercial break is coming or not. All of that becomes second nature in doing this. But with AEW, these guys are like, there's no rest holds, there's no pause. If they have a triple threat, there's never a one guy out the ring, two in the ring. That doesn't happen. Mm-hmm. So like when you get an 8-man, you're just like, oh crap. It's not there. There's just times where I just have to pause and let my mind catch up, and then just start from there. Like, super kick party, blah, 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 and then I'll just put a flurry of offense, and then blah, blah, blah. It's rough.
Most definitely. And anytime that you get Private Party and Young Bucks in the same match, it is gold. The way these teams play off of each other, both like I said, breakneck pace, both extremely high-flying. And between the four teams, even though those two teams are quite similar in terms of their move presentation, I guess, we had a good difference in style between Butcher and the Blade coming in as just brawlers, the Dark Order being the wild cards of the match. I know Blake loved the moment where John Silver went on a Cesaro-like tear, just taking out everybody, getting his moment to shine, and I feel like that is a key element of this match. I feel like each team had their moment to shine. Not a moment seemed wasted here, and we have some people in the chat just arguing back and forth. We have DWID920 coming in saying, first of all, Butcher and the Blade need to invest in some sunscreen because their backs are red. That sounds like a personal problem to me. They can talk to. Oh, sorry. Bit of technical issue there. They can talk back and forth to the Young Bucks because the Young Bucks had quite a fake tan there tonight. But looks aside, a great match. And Wannabe Troutfisher says that the Young Bucks are good, but they need to give the Rock and Roll Express tights back. What do you think about that?
Well, I've had some minor issues with the Young Bucks since so for those that don't know, I live in California, and we have had a pretty amazing resurgence of wrestling in California, at least prior to the pandemic. And that has allowed me to see the Young Bucks for years, from PWG to bar wrestling. I was there when they super kicked Candice with a boot full of thumbtacks. I was there on the last show that Kevin Owens had at PWG. I've seen the Young Bucks quite a few times, and one of my biggest gripes with them is that sometimes their matches take too long with just them being the stars, and it kind of hurts it a lot. Like, the length of a match can be fine if both people involved, or if everyone involved comes out, looking good. Unless, of course, there's a reason why they don't come out looking good. And even with AEW, there are often times where the Young Bucks kind of fall into the Jungle Boy trap, where they're resilient to the point of annoyance. Like, come on, let's get this moving. Tonight wasn't that at all. Tonight, they kind of took a back seat to give everyone their own little bit of love. Whether it be Silver going wild with that, rampage of moves on the outside, who, by the way, on a weekly basis, this guy continues to prove how good he is. It's awesome. Mm-hmm. And then Butcher and Blade, they're hit or miss with me. More hit than miss, though. They know who they are. They're firmly established. Their characters, even if you don't really have a description, you kind of get it. He wears a monocle. He's badass. So, you kind of get. And then Private Party, they got their own thing going for them, but they also have had a chance to shine. So when this match was booked, I was afraid the Young Bucks were just going to show up and show out and, do the, especially now with the character change that they have. But that's not what happened, and I really appreciated that. I really, really liked the ending. I like how it kind of called back to the previous match with Private Party. I'm fine with them winning. I do think that FTR and Young Bucks, there needs to be something a little bit different added to the fold, because the Young Bucks have been annoyingly douchey to the point where you don't want to see them get beat up. You just want to see them not on the show.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not necessarily what you should be going for. So you have FTR who they're not there to defend Tony Schiavone. They're not there to defend Marvez. So that has to kind of go on the wayside, and you need to focus a little bit more on something else. I will say this though. Tully has got some hops. Like you know it was you knew it was somebody. And yeah, you could, logic dictates that it's Tully Blanchard, that it's really him. But to see this guy just hop up on the top rope and just fly off, you're like, what the? I had some moments where I'm like, I'm going to stand up and cheer. You still got it, just to see if you do still, in fact, got it. Like, the boy was, wow.
Now, not only hopping off the top rope, but I was trying to see who it was, because even though I assumed it was Tully Blanchard, you never know with AEW. It can be unpredictable. So I'm sitting here staring at his forearms, trying to see, where have I seen those forearms before? Tully Blanchard, of course, a 65-year-old man with the most defined forearms of all time. But nonetheless, a bit of contention in the chat from earlier. We had Jonas coming out saying, did they spend all this time working on a heel turn for the Young Bucks only to take it back? I assume talking about FTR coming in and tearing apart the Young Bucks at the end of the show. We have Kenneth rebutting, saying not necessarily. The Bucks have had a more desperate edge to them, not to mention specifically isolating Private Party and that sending Bucks